am I taking pictures? And then when I started seeing and being moved by some of these images, I realized as I was looking at this as the psychologist, that it was myself that I was looking at. See, if you think about it, photojournalism, which is primarily my style of shooting, is such that if you had like 15 photographers show up at an event, and they're all photojournalists from all these different stations or newspapers, and a moment unfolds in front of all 15 of them, the shutters will go off. Are all the pictures the same? It's impossible. It's dependent on who grabbed that shot as to what defined that moment for them, and that's based on who they are. As is that a moment? People ask me a lot of times, how come there's so much emotion in your work? It's because I'm a suck for emotion. You know, when I was a little kid, I really didn't have that growing up. I never really saw the chemistry between a man and a woman, you know, a husband and a father. I just never saw it. So I seek it out now as an adult, the stuff that I missed as a kid. So when I go to a wedding, I'm usually the first person to cry. I beat the bride to it, you know, which is my payoff. My payoff is to be in those moments that are so emotional. And so I go back to, that's because that's who I am. And so therefore, I want you to find out who you are as a photographer. Why are you taking these pictures from behind all the time or over the shoulder? Is there something about you that happened back in your childhood, you know, back in where you grew up or in the environment that you were raised or brought up? What was it there that made you take these same similar photos? And eventually, you'll find yourself in every one of your pictures. And that's what this is about. It's about who we are as people and how that affects our work and how that affects our clients, which I'm going to show you in a minute in the pitch. Okay, so that 17 years ago, that one photo defined everything for me. I'm going to go do this. And so I said to myself, well, how? What? What in photography can I do where this can be expressed? How can I express myself? And it so happened I had just spent a couple of weeks at weddings that were friends' weddings. And I kept walking away and silently saying, wish I had a camera in my hand. And it wasn't until that picture that I went back to those days and realized the reason I said that was while the photographer that was hired was probably doing a bang-up job, doing the formals for 2.5 hours, he missed everything that went on behind him, everything. And I said, my gosh, that's what it is. It's the story of the wedding. It's not so much about who was there. And yes, we have to document a little bit who was there. It was more about what happened. What happened? Where did it happen? Why? You know, I mean, all these other questions were really never answered, right? And so that's what I wanted to answer. And clearly, those were the days, 17 years ago, when it was Hasselblad, medium format, with lighting, power packs, a trolley, all this wonderful stuff. And here comes Joe with a little bag with 35mm equipment. And everybody laughed me out, saying, you're a flash in the pan, you're going to last all of 4 months, 5 months, you'll be out of here. 17 years ago. I still laugh at the person that said that to me, because I make 10 times this what he makes. But having said that, this is why we're here, okay? What I've witnessed over the last few years is that this industry has kind of unraveled a little bit from where it was. It used to be really a sought-after arena to be in as a worker, as an artist, and now not so much, because I think people are, you know, and I can understand why, are looking for the quick fix. They're looking for the silver bullet, and I'm here to tell you it doesn't exist. It's nose to the grindstone. It's earnestly studying your craft, and I call it a craft. I call it an art form. It's all those things to me, and hopefully to you. Because when you come from that place where this is an art form for you or self-expression for yourself and how you feed that passion that you have, you will absolutely do the best potentially according to what is your God-given talent as a photographer. And then on top of that, whatever you learn, you add into the mix of that. And it's a lifelong process versus that this is like, tomorrow I want to make $10,000 a wedding. It just doesn't work that way. So take your time, study, find out who you are, and you're going to be pleasantly surprised down the road. I promise you that. So from those 2 weddings, I decided to do a couple of weddings for free. First, having asked if it was okay. I went to other friends' weddings after I went to my first couple of friends' weddings. I had acquaintances that got married and said, I have this idea, I took a photo, I want to become a wedding photographer. Can I come to your wedding and grab a couple cameras? And then I realized I might be stepping on the professional's toes. So I said, can you please let me know who that professional is? And I called that person. I said, look, I'm not a photographer. I'm a guest. I'm a friend that's there. But I'm going to bring some 35mm equipment. They didn't care because 35, I'm Hasselblad. I'm the professional. Okay, cool. So I came in, and my heroes are Henri Cartier-Bresson, Robert Duano, Willie Roney, Robert Frank. I mean, the list is endless of these masters from the 30s, 40s, and 50s that shot black and white film, and they shot it on 35mm equipment. So I said, that's what I want to do. I want to come in light, make a very small footprint when I arrive at the wedding so that people really don't notice me instead of pulling out lights. So I'm going to be an available light kind of guy, and every once in a while my flash will be available as well. So I had that attitude of low footprint, unseen, fly on the wall kind of person. That's what I wanted to be at a wedding. So I went there, I made 10 prints. I show my prints like this. And you'll know, we'll talk about this, but I sign all my prints. I don't tell the client sitting in front of me, the prospective bride and groom, that I'm an artist or I sign my artwork. It's not about that for me. It's more about, here's the image, and here's a little kernel that you'll see that might be a suggestion that I sign my work. My albums are signed as well. And the reason I do that is that if you go to galleries or museum, all the pieces that you look at are always signed. They're numbered, they're signed. So I'm just merely suggesting, if this is art to you, well, it's clearly art to me. That's why I sign it. And when we go over packages and prices, third day, I'll let you know that one of the things that I have on here is my 11 by 14s are $250, signed for $500. And I'd say about 50, 60% of my clients will buy them signed. They'll want me to sign it. Why? Because I showed it to them. I suggested that my signature is worth something. And you know, clearly it's okay if it's not. I'm cool with that. 250 for an 11 by 14, I'm fine with that. It's all good. 500, a little better. Interestingly enough, clients that hire you, what you've shown them, they want. So if all you show them is a slideshow, guess what they're going to ask you at the end of it? Can I have a slideshow? And I know that's like a major complaint, that their clients are always asking for slideshow and they never buy prints. Well, honestly, do you show prints like this? And most of mine in the studio, I brought these for being easier to travel with, are matted 16 by 20. So they're matted, they're 8-ply fronts, foam core backs, so they're pretty heavy duty. Then I hand it to my client to look at. They feel it, they touch it. When they book me, this is what they want. They'll probably get anywhere from 4 to 6 images that they want to frame and put on the wall because I pitched it that way. See, when I show you my pitch in a few minutes, what I'm selling in that pitch is not my work. It already did its work when they saw it online. What I am selling is me. What I'm selling is the experience of having me at the wedding versus someone else. So again, I don't go out verbally and, you know, and just let them know, hey, I'm just selling myself. I am absolutely showing them who I am, why I love what I do, and in the way that I present my work. When they book me, they're booking me because they would rather have me there than anyone else. And yeah, okay, the work's okay. Okay? So if you think about it, when clients come to see you in your studio, they've narrowed it down to 3, 5, 6 people already, right? Because this is how they do it now. They shop online. They narrow it down from 20, 30. I've had brides say, bless you, I've had brides say hundreds of photographers that they've researched. And they've narrowed it down to less than a handful. So when they sit in front of me, it's no longer that necessary to pitch the work. What I'm doing when I'm talking or I'm showing the work is I'm actually pitching myself. And you'll see that in a minute. Okay? That is crucial to me. And we go back to what I said in the beginning. It's who I am that I'm selling. The most important thing about photography, the most important thing, is who you are. And over the next 3 days, you're going to find out why. Okay? So back to having started. So in the beginning, I ended up with 10 prints. I did my first few weddings at $700 a wedding, plus $20 per roll of film that I shot. Those were the expenses. Okay? So $700. So I can probably speak to a lot of people that are online right now that are going, how am I going to make money at this? Today, I'm roughly on the average anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 per wedding. That's what I get. And that's even in this tough time. And I'll show you how to do that as well. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up, and here's a bit of a disclaimer, okay? I'm in Beverly Hills. I'm in Hollywood. I deal with celebrity clients. People have money. I do a lot of out-of-country gigs, the people that have money. So if you're in Iowa, Idaho, in a little farm community, and I'm talking $15,000 at you, don't sweat it, because if I went there, they would laugh me out of town, okay? Yeah, I'm more like $800, $1,000, $1,500 tops. I get it. So be aware that this is all based on where you are, where you sell yourself, or where you promote yourself. So in the beginning, I was already based in LA, and I already dealt with the Hollywood crowd. I decided to put myself into New York as well. Okay, so I went to New York with it. I put my name out there because that's where the money was. So you don't necessarily have to target the audience or your clientele that are in your community if your community is a farm community. You can go outside of it. I mean, I travel constantly to Santa Barbara, that I drive to San Diego. That's 2 hours, 2.5 hours from me. I don't mind. I don't charge for travel time. It's whatever it takes to go to the bigger cities where there are the clumps of money that will hire me. So don't be afraid to go outside of your arena. A lot of people get stuck. Well, there's no money where I am. Well, I get that, so then go somewhere else. Now internet, it can't stop you. Back then, 17 years ago, I feared having a 323 number because in New York they go, that's LA, no, skip it. So I got an 800 number so that they couldn't tell where I was. And the reason I did that was by the time they called me and fell in love with me, it didn't matter that I was in LA and they flew me out. Initially, if they see that, oh, that's an out-of-state number or whatever, they may, okay, maybe I won't do that because they think of expenses. Again, when they're in front of me, what am I doing? I'm selling me. At that point, if they buy me and who I am, expenses kind of go away a little bit. Not always. Don't get me wrong. There's times there is a limit on the budget, and I understand that. But you know how many times I've had a bride in front of me that had she known on the internet that I was at $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and her budget was $8,000, she would say, I'm not even going to go see him, so I don't put my prices online. But when they sat in front of me and then they found out how much I was, they looked at each other and said, well, honey, what if we cut back 4 hors d'oeuvres? All of a sudden, because now I want to work for her, because why? Photography is important to her. I want to work for someone who the photography is that important to, that they're willing to compromise other little pieces of their wedding to get me. God bless them. That's awesome. So when I'm done, the ultimate goal for me is when they book me, that we're reading the same book and we're on the same page. And I usually see that after 4 or 5 images when I see a tear rolling down her face. And she goes, oh my God, it's not even my wedding. Oh no, but it is your wedding. I'm talking about your wedding too. Because I'm pitching me. I'm the same person at this wedding as I will be at yours. Same person. And that's what you're buying. You think about experience. There's 3 levels. You can be a commodity. Okay? You can be a commodity where everything's based on price. You can step it up from the commodity level and you can be a service. You can be service-oriented. I will provide books. All of a sudden, you're a step above that. That deserves a little more money. But the ultimate, the 3rd level, is you can be an experience. That's what you're trying to sell. I want you to think Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons Hotel, okay? If you drive up to the Ritz-Carlton in LA, in Marina del Rey, where I live in California, and you pull into the driveway, a man comes out. He's got a little walkie. He's got a little thing, earpiece, and he's got a little walkie-talkie. He pops the trunk. He sees your suitcase in it. He gets your name, and he rings it back to the front desk. It's Mr. Busink. Oh, yeah, he's been here with us before. He's back. Guy greets me, says, welcome back, Mr. Busink. Really? How'd you know my name? How'd you know I was even back? How awesome is that? And you walk, they lead you into the front, at the front desk, and all of a sudden you may ask, excuse me, where's the bathroom? They don't point. It's down the hall and to the right. They walk you there, right to the front door. And they say, have a great day, Mr. Busink. And they walk away. That's why you're paying $400 for that night, for that bed, the same bed the Holiday Inn or Motel 6 has for $69. It's a bed, maybe a little more comfy, Ritz. But that said, you're paying for an experience, more money. And that's what I want to do with my photography. I want to be an experience so that, and sometimes it's a bitter pill to swallow, and since '08 it has been, and I'll talk about the adjustments I've made on the third day in packages. But people pay for the experience. People pay for the experience. Okay? If you are clumped together with everybody else as a commodity and you're arguing and comparing each other over price, they're going to get the cheapest they can. They're going to put A against B against C. Well, hey, he down the street will give me that plus add a book. Can you match that? How many times do you get that, right? That's because you're a commodity. As an experience, there's only one experience. That's mine. You can have another experience. There's plenty of them out there. But I'm pitching my experience. That's what I want $15,000 for. And it's worth it. By the time they leave, they know it's worth it. Okay? So we'll talk about that a little bit. So pretty much that's how I got started. $750, and 17 years later, I'm still plugging away at $1,520. Now, having just booked 2 weddings in China, and 1 in Indonesia, and 1 in Paris, they're between $30,000 and $40,000 each. Because that's where the money is. They have our money. I want to bring some of it back. So I'm outside of the country now because, you know, I go wherever the money is, where they can afford me. And it's not, and you will see this, it's not just about the money, but I want to afford myself a nice living and get my retirement going. Since I started at 45, a little late in the game, but, you know, I'm now starting to slow down a little bit. But, God, what a great ride it's been. You guys are going to love this. Do this and do it for the right reasons, and you're going to absolutely fall in love, which I'm sure most of you already are anyway. All right, so that's pretty much how I started, and this is where I am today. And the pitch is the most amazing thing that I can show you that I do that sells who I am. So do we want to do that? Do we have any questions right now?
There is a question from the internet.
Oh, good.
From Zeus from the Philippines is asking, Joe, you started a little later than most of us, but did you have any absolute fears when you started out, and what were they?
Hi, Zeus. Glad you joined us. I was absolutely initially scared to death. Only because I jumped into something that I was told that I would never make it in. But having said that, I'll tell you what allayed all of my fears. As many of the celebs that I've done, and people do ask me about fears about shooting celebrity clients, my first, for me, true celebrity was when Annie Leibovitz hired me to shoot her sister's wedding. As she's looking over my shoulder and making comments, I was scared to death. Now, that was a true fear for me. Initially, though, because I was older and it was later in life for me, the fear of getting started was totally abandoned by my drive to get there and to get there now. And having said that, and as much as I just said about newbies, you know, having to take time to learn it, I did. I knew a little bit about photography. Just to back it up a little bit, I worked in a photo lab when I was working on my PhD, and I learned photography from the tail end of things. I processed film. I did black and white, E6, C41. I processed films. I printed Cibachrome, Type R, Type C, black and whites. So before picking up a camera. And then I went into the landscape while I was thinking about dissertations and working on graduate projects. I would go on a weekend, find a location out in the woods somewhere, and park myself with my little camera, with a glass of wine in my... It was all about the wine anyway. It wasn't about the camera. But I would grab photos of the landscape because I loved landscape photography. So I had already a sense of what the camera could do and clearly what you can do in post-production. And back in the day of film and in the darkroom, that's pretty archaic today that you have to do this. But the craft is such that these things, these images that you'll see of mine were molded by hand, which is just stunning. And they're one-ofs. So that part didn't scare me so much as the part of how am I going to make it, how I'm going to actually buy all the gear that I need to be quote-unquote professional. And that's in part also where the 35mm idea came from. I couldn't really afford the Hasselblad. So I started with not quite top-of-the-line stuff, but I sunk a lot of my money on credit cards into good enough gear that I knew I needed based on the experience I had in the lab to kind of get by on. And I still think if you're really good, it doesn't matter. You can have an Instamatic camera and grab great shots, okay? So, yeah, there were some fears, and it had to revolve around how am I going to make it in this business? And that's when I realized, and the little psychologist in me said, look, you just got to follow your heart. You just got to believe in yourself, get good enough gear, not like top of the line, but good enough that you can actually get amazing images, and then rely on the drive and the education that you have regarding making photos. So yeah, there was a little fear, and then I overcame it because I was 45.
Annie Leiboviz's sister. I mean, no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. Annie Leibovitz. And you know, so a little background story on that. And Annie, God bless her, she's amazing. I mean, she's one of my, you know, role models, heroes in today's arena of photography. She's just incredible. But she also was initially going to photograph the wedding, and she was also the maid of honor. So I sent her a little, when she found me, she thought I was shooting video, that I shot video. And when she found out that I was a still shooter, she said, no, I need a videographer. So she bypassed me, and I quickly sent her a little thing in the mail, a 3-folded little thing with some images on it. And I said, oh, come on, it's your family. You're going to be the maid of honor. I'd be happily shooting this thing for you. And she called me, and she said, that's pretty gutsy, the way you did that. And your work is kind of edgy. She used the word edgy. Okay, how much are you? And at that time, I was $1,500. And she was shocked. $1,500 for a wedding photographer? I said, yeah, worth every penny. Absolutely. So the wedding went on, and of course, she also shot. And she had, you know, access to the truck that came with the wind machine and the portable generator and the lights with the umbrellas on it on the beach with the wind blowing, and her sister in the sunset. It was, and I got to be the guy that shot it wide angle, 35mm in the sand. I got these amazing shots of Annie photographing her sister. And that, again, defined kind of my style in that it was photojournalistic. I documented everything that was happening. And when I showed up, I think it was toward the end of the year, I think Thanksgiving or something, and I was at Barbara's house, which is her sister, and I had put together a little booklet of 8 by 10 prints. And I was sitting with Barbara, her husband, and Annie's mom was there, and father, and Annie was behind me, standing over the couch, looking down. And I'm flipping the book, and I'm hearing, ooh, ah, ooh. I hear nothing here, nothing. And I'm sweating. I'm like sweating. I'm going, oh my gosh, she's hating these things. And I just flip, and I flip, and I get to the end of the book, and I close it, and I leer up, and she looked at me, and she went, And she nodded and she said, you know what? It reminded me of how I used to shoot. And she loved every image. And she hired me to shoot her cousin's wedding the following year on her property in New York. And after that, nothing bothered me. Kelsey Grammer was my actual first celebrity wedding. But J-Lo's, Christina Aguilera, none of them, that was it for me. Annie Leibovitz just took it completely out of me because I was shaking like a leaf for like 10 hours. No pressure. Anyway,
Wow.
so that's pretty much how this whole thing happened. But yeah, back to any other questions you might have?
Quite a story.
You're inspiring everyone around
Awesome.
the world right now. By the way, the internet already loves you.
That's great.
Okay, I do have a question. You did talk about how starting as an older photographer,
Yeah.
it helped you because you knew yourself. Jobs Photo would like to know, what hurdles did you face as an older photographer when you started?
Now, you have to remember, I think, you know, as much press that this whole new age of digital is getting, and also the grief it's giving us old fogies, the old farts out there, it's always been like that. It's always been like that. Our industry always comes to these stages where there's a new group coming in that ticks off the older group, okay? And you either adapt or you perish. So hurdles, yeah, the first one was you'll never make it, Joe. A, you know nothing about wedding photography. B, you never went to school for it. C, you don't own a Hasselblad. And I said, bull to all of that. The same way you should approach this now too with digital. You know, I know, okay, being part of that group that is the older generation and how we did it back then and how we went to school or we learned the ropes the hard way. We were second shooting for someone. We dragged their bags everywhere first before a camera was handed to us. All of that said, there's a lot of grief that we felt when this whole new age came about, when it became digital and easier to shoot and less education was needed because the cameras were so good and the post-production tools are incredible, okay? You can't help it. That is the nature of the beast. So the old guard was a little offended for the shoot and burns people, you know? Shoot it, burn a disc, leave it. I get it, because for me, it's a craft, so it's about enhancing it and giving your client something really, really beautiful, okay? So that's very important for me. But I understand it if you're trying to put food on the table and you just got laid off or your job got cut back 3 days out of the 5, you have 4 kids, your wife was just let go from her position, and you're going to do a shoot and burn on Saturday, I understand. As much as you can, try and still give them something that speaks of who you are and what that is about that you just did. It's a craft. It's beautiful. Enhance the images. Give them something a little more than just a disc that's raw footage, you know? So there were lots of obstacles when I first started. I couldn't do it. Clearly, that's what they said. And 35 millimeter can't touch it. But you know what? You overcome it. You adapt. You reinvent. All these things are words that I use, and I'll show you, because when 08 happened to all of us, the whole bottom fell out of the industry, okay? So what are you going to do? You're going to complain as an old guy because all these newbies are snagging the jobs for $700 and you're at $3 grand, $4 grand, $5 grand, and you're ticked off at the newbies that are doing these things for nothing so that they could work? Or are you going to reinvent yourself? Are you going to figure out, because here's what this is about. How are you different from everybody else that's in your arena? How do you separate yourself? How do you not compete with anybody else? And that's why I say right here, this first thing is the pitch. You start right here by separating yourself from everyone else, by doing something different. And I'm going to ask you to take that with you. After 3 days, I want you to find one thing that you picked up from me, just one, and apply it to your business. Apply it to the way that you shoot. Try it. Be different. Start out. Because if all you do is write stuff down in your little book, or you guys are going to just watch the tape over and over, and not apply it, it's done you nothing. Okay? You take a kernel from every person that you learn from, and you absorb it, and you make it your own. Make it your own. Don't copy anybody else. You don't have to copy anybody. Be who you are. And of course, did I learn? Yeah, I'm a rung on a ladder. And I'm the first person, if I'm at the top of this thing and people put me there, I'm going to reach down, and if that's your hand I'm grabbing, I'm going to pull you up and shove you above me. Because I want this industry to continue to grow, to be worthy of, and give the respect of the people that paid this kind of money, and that will pay this kind of money. So I know I will do these tangents. I get on these little soapboxes. I'm sorry, you guys. But it's really important to me that we continue to grow this business to where it gains respect. And at this point in time, I can tell you right now how many photographers that have come out of commercial, fashion, newspaper, Pulitzer Prize winner newspaper photographers that have come into weddings that would have never have done this 17 years ago when I started. Never. It was the lowest rung in the food chain of photography, wedding photography. It was, when you said wedding photographer 17 years ago, here's what came to mind. Oh yeah, that older guy with a half a head of hair that was greasy. He would whip it over to the other side to cover the bald spot up. And he wore a purple ruffled shirt that, God, I'm telling you, it had a food stain from last week's bar mitzvah on it. Okay? That's what conjured up in your mind when you said wedding photographer. Because it was considered the lowest rung. And now look at it. So I want us all to kind of keep building this thing that we love so much. And back 17 years ago, there was a lot of backstabbing. Whatever you could do when you had that client from you, so who have you seen? Oh, him. He's horrible. There was so much of that. You wouldn't believe how much backstabbing there was. Oh, I wouldn't hire that guy. You'll never get what you want out of it. So bad-mouthing one another, you know, that isn't done so much today. So you hang together. I mean, you know, it's a beautiful community that we have. So I'd like to keep it that way. I know. I went off track, didn't I?
Joe, honestly,
Yeah.
you on your soapbox is going to be the best part of this workshop. So
Sorry, soapbox.
keep it up.
Yeah.
Love it.
We love
All
it.
right. All right. So, yeah, in answer to that question, a long way around, I had lots of obstacles. You can overcome it. You can absolutely overcome anything if you really desire to do so. Don't listen to the naysayers. Do not. I was told I would never make it. Don't listen to that. If it's in here, access it, use that energy, and drive right through the people that say you can't do that. What else? Do we have any other questions? Sure.
Joey T4P from Kazakhstan is wondering, what made you different than other photographers when you started, who were surely just as passionate as yourself?
Yeah. Good question. I'll tell you what makes me different, and that's my pitch, okay? It's that from the very beginning, what I sold was me. I never believed in selling product. So my initial thing is, and it is still that way to some extent, I do have packages now that have a product in it because since '08 I've had to add that. But in the beginning and now, I'm fee-based. So what I do is I charge for my creative input on the day of the wedding. And back then, 17 years ago, you had the silver package, the gold package, we had platinum, and we had diamond, we had copper. You had all these packages like, you know, it was so overwhelming, and all of it had everything in the kitchen sink in it. And so what people would do, they would sit there and compare photographer A, B, and C according to their packages. It was a commodity. How much and what did you throw in it? So what I did was, it's $8,500, let's say, 7 hours of my time. That's me. I'm not going to lower that. It's me. Well, what comes with it? It comes with me. And what about books? Extra. I do Graphy Studio books, you know, 50 images. Simple. I'm not going to gouge you on the books because I'm trying to get a fee-based system going. So creative input, so my opponents may, or you know, people in my industry may charge $5,000 for a book. I charge $1,500. It's not about the book for me in the sense that I'm trying to beat them up with the book. So what happens to them after they see my $8,500 initial fee, that's my low end for 7 hours of my time, and then they see 50 images in a Graphy book for $1,500, yeah, you're at 10 grand already, so thank you. But yeah, 1,500. Because they're hearing the package prices. It's $3,500 for a book. It's $5,000. Some people in LA have $7,000 albums. I don't think I have a $7,000. I think my top end book is about a graphic book's $3,500 to $4,000, and we're talking double slipcase. I mean, it's big. So I keystone it. Most people do 300% on top their cost. I do 100%. Because, again, what I want to do is this. If I don't include a book in my package and I offer them to buy in right at the base price of $85 or $10,000, because if there's an engagement session, it's another $1,500, so it's $10,000. Let's just say they got $10,000. And then I tell them, the books are later, don't worry about it. Guess what? The book's not part of my package, right? So that money, and I was lousy at this, I'd spend it. It'd be going for this bill, that bill, it goes in this, a little bit of savings, what have you. It gets spent, and then all of a sudden, if there was